Righto, welcome back to the third instalment of still rolling with, Tuohy and Stewie, they're still rolling with that. Big show, they're all big shows. We're huge in the podcast game, and we've got an Aussie icon, passionate Cats fan, Sally Fitzgibbons, coming up. So we're super excited to talk to Sally. I'm sure she'll give us some great insights into the world of surfing. But first of all, Zach, how are we, mate?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, mate. We're sitting here at a beautiful night at GMHBA Stadium. The sun's just coming down, and where would you rather be?
Yeah, we're heading off to Adelaide tomorrow off a good win against the Doggies. And a bye, what'd you do for the bye?
I was not far from you, but obviously you didn't want to catch up. I was in Byron. You were in Currumbin.
It was a holiday.
We still getting caught up, but anyway. Byron with the family, mate. Beautiful, obviously nice. I mean, it's beautiful now in Victoria, but peak winter is always tough, especially for the family. So good to get out and give this family a bit of a chop out. And a bit of a spell.
You had a comparable experience on the flight home to what I had, trying to entertain our kids.
Yeah,
we weren't on the same flight, but it sounds like we...
Yeah, we were that family. Yeah, my daughter, God bless her, she's an angel. But, we had an interesting little experience with the archback and the tears, and there was no bribing. There was no sugar. There was no Sesame Street Paw Patrol.
It's the extent of my parenting.
Nothing.
If chocolate doesn't work, I just have nothing else to fall back on.
And it really, when you actually, sit down and think about it, it shouldn't work. It's pumping them full of sugar to sit there for 3 minutes.
It should work in the extreme short term, and then it pays horrible dividends in like 10 minutes afterwards.
But we love our family. You, Gold Coast as well?
Gold Coast as well. Went up and stayed with the Casballs.
Beautiful.
Good friend of mine, Levi, plays with Gold Coast.
Yes.
G'day, Levi, long-term listener. I know he is.
Big
fan of the show.
Fan.
Stayed there for a few days, went for a little bike ride. It's beautiful up there. It's so nice.
Yeah, it is. Currumbin. Beautiful part of the world.
But glad to be back into footy and big game this week.
Massive game, yeah. Obviously, Port, great form line over there. Always a tough ask, but really positive after the Bulldogs game. Felt like it was not a season-defining win, but it sort of gives you that, springboard into the second half of the year. It was a fast contest. It was a hell of a game to play in, and I feel as though it's going to give us a lot of confidence moving forward.
Yeah, it was a fun game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's such a cliche Marvel, but games just get rapid.
They do.
Like you can prep for all you want, but they just turn into like basketball, don't they? It's just up and down, and it's really hard not get drawn into playing that way, even if it's not your style, although we do like to play quick. Yeah,
absolutely. And sometimes as well, the teams that you play against, Doggies are a pretty high octane team, high handball, high pressure, and I kicked a goal, so that was pretty good fun.
Let's talk about that. So how many games we can pull?
It was 108 games without a goal.
No one's counting.
I got told because Collar, our dear friend Collar, good teammate of ours, had 138 games without a goal. 128 games without a goal. And I think he may have been keeping a checklist.
Fair enough. We reminded Collar every week for 3 years that he hadn't kicked a goal.
It was a running gag that he just hated by the
I really enjoyed it too. I came from deep in the celebrations. Can we chop in the behind the goals of my celebrations for Stewie? Because I came from deep.
As the old adage goes, no idea what to do after celebrating. I had no idea what to do with my hands. I was doing these ones. I was winding up. I was doing the double cobras. I gave it heaps too.
Yeah, genuine. That was really fun. It's been a while coming. You're too deep taking intercept max. You can't kick goals from 120 out.
There's a force field at the middle of the ground, I feel.
I
get there and I go, you guys go to work up there.
That's where you do your best work. Matt Connor's 100th game against Port this week. It's a good effort.
It's unbelievable, mate. Unbelievable.
And so... Look, mate, to come from Ireland and play that many games, you have to be so good.
You do.
He's because he debuted super early is one thing people forget. He was in the leadership group by his third year, I reckon. Yep. So he would have only been 21 or 2 coming from a different court. It speaks volumes about him. But it's 100 games in quick succession for somebody. Because I think I'm pretty sure he's beaten me to the 100-game mark in terms of time here.
100% invaluable to our team, our structure, flexibility, durability, every adjective.
Genuinely tough as well.
Genuinely tough,
sure
fit, strong. Like he's deceptively, he's as
handsome
good an athlete. Too. Handsome,
underrated,
polite. He's a beautiful human.
Yeah.
But the impact that he has on the group, as you said, third year
remarkable,
in the sport was in our leadership group with the likes of Joel Selwood, Harry Taylor, Mark Blitzarves, yourself. He took to it like a duck to water. And he has had a profound impact on the group. And just keeps continuing to front up and get the job done. Tags, plays back, goes forward, plays wing, inside. Like I can't speak highly enough of him. And it's a fantastic effort, and it's probably one closer to your heart to see another Irish boy play 100 games. It's a magnificent achievement.
Well, it's a huge effort. For a couple of reasons. He took virtually no guidance when he came out. That's the one thing that strikes me about him when he comes out, is that you sort of, or at least I try and help out the Irish guys as much as I can, but he just didn't take any guidance. Now, I've tried to help in little spots here and there when I felt I could, but he was so professional, and he was really aware of what he felt he had to work on, and I think that showed in the fact that he debuted so early. It was his first year, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was like 6 or 7.
It was
Essendon anyway. So I think that shows in the fact that he debuted so early and all those other things you talked about. The highlight from his career so far from me was the grand final rundown. Yeah. Now, the grand final obviously turned into what it turned into by the end of the game, so it's very easy to look back and say, well, like, no one thing mattered, because like we would have just ran over the top of them. We dominated the first half of that first quarter, but we actually didn't kick a goal for a while. No, we didn't. And then I'm not sure what the score was when that happened, but it had felt like we locked them in their front half for the whole game up till that point, and this was it. They'd finally kind of gotten out, and the people watching on TV won't have seen this. I've seen it back since. In the 2 or 3 minutes before he laid that tackle, he did 2 or 3 full ground efforts on the fat side. So he ran forward to try and be an option, ran back, went forward again, and then it was like on the 3rd or 4th effort back is when he laid that tackle, and people don't see that. Now, I think we probably would have won the game had it not happened, but you don't need to be giving teams, an out early in a big game when you're on top. So when I think about him, I think that sums him up quite nicely. Really unselfish, does that all the time, and doesn't always get the tackle rundown reward. But super effort, super proud, and his brother and mother are out here, which is awesome. So I get to see the game. So well done, Shark. Well done, Merrick. Well deserved. Questions. Viewer questions. Absolutely no doctoring or vetting done of these. So these there wasn't any random. No. Questions about scrumptious calling of said teammates. We won't bring that up. And a lot of O'Shane love, which is what we love. We love O'Shane. He's a handsome man. So he's a handsome man. Keep sending in your random and PG rated questions, please. Speaking of O'Shane, we'll get this one out of the way because there's plenty of it. Worst mispronunciations. So it's O'Shane is his name. O'Shane. Yeah. We gave him a good dozen nicknames when he arrived. It was we did. It got to Frank at one stage. I think it was Ocean, Frank. Yeah. So we were all with Frank for a bit. Yoshi, Hoisin Sauce. Oh, I was going to say we got to Sauce, but how did we get to Sauce? Hoisin Sauce. Hoisin. And we've kind of settled on Yosh, just because it's as close as most people get. Yoshi. Fabio, he's real Fabio. Would you pick him? Well, he's the complexion. Would you pick him as Irish? I've always seen myself as a bit of a Juan or a what? Juan. If you didn't know better, you looked at me, you thought he's Juan. No? Yeah. Or Sven? Yeah, I can see that. More than Juan. Yeah, that was left field. Yeah, Sven. Yeah. Super handsome name. Yeah. Yeah. So Yosh, we've settled on Yosh as his nickname, but there's been some absolute butcherings of it. You're welcome to AFL moment. What was your well, when I saw this question, I didn't know, is this in a positive or a negative? It can be either, I guess, because, my mind instantly went to the first big hit I got. So maybe that's not really a positive, I guess, but that for some reason, that's the way. Who was it? So I don't know if it was the first big one I got, but it's the first one I can think of early in my career, and it was Jez Schultz. We were playing Port. Yeah. We were playing Port in Adelaide, and it was kind of a 50-50 ball in the middle of the ground, and I dove at it back when you could dive at it. And I can't remember how he went into the contest. But you know those hits where it feels exactly like broken ribs, but like after a few minutes it goes away. Yeah. So it's that properly you can't breathe. So it was one of them, and it was like I was keeled over, and I can remember looking and seeing that he was also down. Yeah. So I remember thinking, just get up and run away. Just get up and run away. So I stood up and jogged off, and I was in a bad way, but he stayed down, so I jogged off to try and, look like I smashed him and I was fine and he wasn't. I came off the ground, I was in a bad way. But I watched the game back because the coaches used to talk a lot about or if you're really fatigued and you see your man on his hands and knees, just try and stand up straight just to make him think it's going to be a long day. So it was a bit of that. And then I watched it back, and the coaches at the time were like, Tuohy sprung up and ran off, there's nothing wrong with him. Mate, I couldn't breathe. I was so bad. But when I read the question, that's for some reason, that's the way that was like welcome to AFL, because I got smashed.
What was mine?
Sydney?
That's
a good thing.
Early. I remember, I think it was around 5
Is this
or
when you broke
6.
your face?
No. 5 or 6, we played our first Easter Monday game against Hawthorn.
Yeah.
Because I reckon we had a run of games at Marvel because our new stand was being built.
Yes. We didn't play here till round 9.
Round 9. I reckon we played Easter Monday. I reckon it was my first game at the G, potentially second.
Is that when you kicked your first goal?
Kicked my first goal, yeah. Side note, another goal kicking, yeah. No, I remember I picked up a loose ball in the back line and sort of handballed it. I think it was to Mac or Domsey, and they sort of gave it back. And then I got tackled, and there was a bit of a sort of scrum formed. And then Liam Shields from Hawthorn sort of came over the top and grabbed me by the scruff and sort of jumper punched me and said a few expletives. And I was like, whoa, hang on, that hasn't happened yet. So I think that was my sort of first, like, this is like the ultra competitive AFL. Because I think we were maybe 4-1, or we hadn't lost up until that point, and we didn't lose that game. And I was just like, wow, like that was a bit of a literal smack in the face. Like, you're playing with the big boys now. So I do remember that vividly. That's pretty good.
He spotted targeted you nice and early. Knew what you'd turn into. Take it as a compliment.
Yeah. Any pre-game rituals, me and you?
Yeah,
footy golf.
Yeah, footy golf.
Footy golf.
For those who don't know,
we've done
if you're ever here at GMHBA early. If you're ever here early, you're very likely to see me, Stewie, maybe Jack Henry or Busey jumping in.
Yeah, Busey jumps in. Yeah.
Playing footy golf out in the oval. Pick a target.
Yep.
Have you ever beaten me? Do you reckon?
Yes. Once.
It's funny. Our first year.
It's funny because I reckon you do have the wood on me, and
barely.
And then myself and Jack Henry, we do a ground ball game in the warm up as before we come out and then we go back in, come back out for the actual game, and I genuinely think I'm 46-1 against Jack. I've been keeping count. It's the first to fumble 3 ground balls, and he will. He'll argue black and blue, but I'm fairly sure he's beaten me once on the Gold Coast.
I've seen a lot of them, and I don't recall him winning.
No.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There's something for people to watch when they come to a game. So that particular game is just before the ball is bounced, when we do our final warm-up.
Yep.
Our one is like, you have to get there like an hour and a half early.
As the gates open. We are early birds. If nothing else, we both get here super early.
Maybe that's another slight tradition. Yeah, it's like 3 hours before. 3 hours before.
Yeah.
So there you go. I guess
no, like left sock, right shoe. Nothing strange. Too exhausting.
Yeah, I couldn't be dealing with it. I get accused of being slightly OCD, and it's overrated. I'm not. I have a few little quirks, but not really.
No.
And I
just like certain things out of place that you don't like.
Yeah.
Like little nuances in photos and stuff. Or
There's things. Yeah, but that bothers everyone.
Yeah.
You know, like those kind of meme things where somebody's cut a cake at a funny angle. That I do. That does my head in. Was it you or Hendo?
It was me.
That
was when you did the podcast with Lingy and Scotty Gullen, and they said they were talking about your OCD, and I sent all those photos.
Yeah.
And there was the sicko one where someone's got a Kit Kat and they've just taken a bite out of it instead of breaking. That made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're not normal people. No. There you go. Grumpiest after a bad game. We'll finish on this. I mean,
there's no one that's happy.
There's no one in a great mood after a bad game.
No, and
it is a bit of a tough one because I actually think I've gotten a little bit more emotional with age. Like I don't think I've really calmed down. Maybe I have. I'm not sure, but maybe I'm more confident to kind of express it. But you just have to be careful after losses, especially as senior players, because people do kind of watch. And a lot of younger guys, or maybe it's not true of our guys, but like I certainly know when I was a bit younger, when I was sort of making my way, I don't reckon losses hit as hard when you're younger. Maybe it's because like we know there's not as many games left, but I don't know. You get grumpy after a loss.
Let's not throw stones now, Zach.
We're
both as bad as each other. If it's an interstate game and we're all on the bus, there's hoods on, there's headphones in, there's not much talking. It's not a nice place when you lose. And again, the result shouldn't dictate your mood, but rightly or wrongly, we are playing a ferocious sport where you are the commentary around you is win or loss. Like that's basically how you're perceived to have to behave. Is if you win, you should act accordingly, and if you lose, you should be acting accordingly. Which I again, the beauty of experience, I just don't buy into that anymore.
I was just going to say that.
Thankful that being a father now, I can open my front door and I'm still a dad when I get home. And that has probably allowed me to not ride the roller coasters of wins and losses. It doesn't hurt any less, and I don't, bash myself individually up any less than I used to, but it makes it a lot more manageable when you can.
You just get out your funk quickly.
Yeah, remove, the player from the person. And I think that's the most important thing.
It's like the criticism that used to get, I can't remember who it was, but there was criticism level at a player one day. We beat them. And they were like shaking hands post-game. Like, they might have been former teammates. I can't remember exactly the context. It's just daft. Like, okay, I'm probably the one, I'm be more prone to like storming off after a loss.
Yeah.
But if you had a former teammate or one of our danger talk to a player from Adelaide post-game, like, I don't question his belief in the aftermath of it. It's ridiculous. But anyway, we're going down a tangent that we don't need to go down.
No, but, little insight into the way we operate, I suppose.
Yeah, the mental pygmies that
we
really are. Excellent. We'll jump to a break. Next up, we have Sally. I've had the pleasure of speaking to her before. She's a legend. She's great to talk to you. You're going to love it.
Very much looking forward to this one.
And welcome back. Very exciting. I've had the pleasure before speaking to Sally on a previous podcast I did with former teammate Lockie Henderson.
And it was,
Lockie. I'm far from an expert in surfing, but I have to say, she was an absolute pleasure to speak to then. I'm sure this will be the same. Sally, welcome. Thanks so much for jumping on. We know you're a little bit jet lagged, but how are you keeping?
Tuohy and Stewie, how good's this? This is like the highlight of coming home. Like, all you want to do is hear like Aussie voices and been away so long. Like
Aussie voices,
Irish twang.
Aussie vibe. I know. You're an honorary Aussie now.
Yeah, well, I've been here a while. I'm not sure what I've got because it's not an Irish accent anymore and it's definitely not Aussie. So I'm not really welcome anywhere at here or back home. So you've just gotten back from El Salvador, a little bit jet lagged. How you feeling in terms of performing on our podcast now?
I'll try and keep the podcast vibes going, get the vibes up because it is a long flight back. It's probably 40 hours travel and it's pretty cool though. It's one of those spots you go to and like Sal goes to on your plane ticket. It says like just the abbreviation Sal. So it's like LAX to Sal. And it's like when you start jet lagged and like delirious, you just think like the end of the train is you. The last destination is you, Sal. So when we got there, you just, you're going into probably 35-degree heat, 100% humidity. And the water is actually... it was like 31 degrees. So it's just like swimming in a big like bowl of soup. And so it's just all these elements are just against you and just trying to perform. There's nothing like it. And so the challenge is real, but we had our Aussie team and we were there at the World Champs. So the vibes were high.
Very good. Is that like, obviously competing in surfing and competing at the highest level was an amazing thing to achieve, but is the travel just as good? The places that you get to see, the people, the cultures you get to experience, is that like sort of a massive, massive tick in the thing that you do?
Oh, it's super cool. It's like just the scenery just changing for you. In sports, it's pretty monotonous, as you guys know. So for that scene to change for you and the challenge, like it's kind of leading you along and you're trying to plug in your process and like to all these different environments and just trying to get your body and your mind right to go out there on game day and be actually ready. And it's just like spun you upside down. You've woken up in some place and, just the adaptation is pretty neat. And you walk out your door and, no one's speaking English anymore and you can't get your favorite food. And I think that's kind of cool. It's just you don't get what you want when you want. And as athletes, we're pretty pandered to. I think that we have pretty cool lives where people actually care about our day-to-day and ask how we are, and they want us to be kind of at our like optimum to perform. And you just go into these environments, especially in the individual sport, I guess, and it's that sense of like, whoa, okay, it's up to me. I've got to get everything up to scratch here, because when you walk out there, no one really cares that you've had a sleepless night and maybe your tummy doesn't feel that good because you've eaten something, or the water, you're a little bit dehydrated because you can't get enough bottled water or whatever it is. So, and you just got to go out there, no excuses, and try and perform at your best.
Do you just become accustomed to kind of that type of adversity? Because this is something that we don't experience as footballers, is this kind of severe jet lag and traveling to new environments. I kind of I've played enough football now that I know that on the days that I don't feel good, like I've enough kind of evidence to suggest I can kind of still perform, so I don't tend to panic as much. But that's just dialed up to 11 for like you guys who have to travel around the world. Have you just become accustomed to dealing with that type of hardship, or do you have like tools in place to kind of help you cope when you're not feeling great?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So it's like, even through COVID, I chose, because it was actually hard to travel with your team. And I'm lucky I get to work with my dad. Like, he's my right-hand man. And we traveled together for, like the first 15 years on tour. And coming into COVID, you didn't want to, one get stuck somewhere and one get stuck over here and leaving people behind and all that kind of stuff. So, and going through quarantine as well. And I thought it was a cool opportunity. I was like, well, I'm going to just show up as myself, like to an event where it's like a world tour sport and there's entourages, there's people helping, all that stuff. Like, it's pretty wild. Like, you walk down the beach and it's just like you, and you have to carry all your stuff and own your decisions. And, normally when you say to coach, like, what board, like, I'm thinking this, and that sounding board's not directly there. As athletes, you'd seem like, oh, that's the scariest thing ever. Like, you have to go out there, perform, and win, lose or draw, you come in and you're staring at the locker room and you're just like, oh, okay. Like, you can't run from your emotion. You can't hand it off to someone. You just got to seriously just look there and go, okay, well, I've got to deal with this. And I'm on the other side of the world, and you're trying to walk back to your accommodation. You got like 3 boards and like wetsuits around your neck, and everyone's just looking at you like, don't you just get someone to help you? And I was just like you got to, at some point, just help build that character, because post-sport, I'm just imagining, and what I hear from all the other ex-athletes, like, it is a big drop-off point where you get there and there's like, oh, it's eerily quiet and no one's, rushing to the door when you got all your kids or your groceries maybe, or your life just seems a little harder. And so I feel like training that urge to kind of hand off your disappointment, or, the hardest thing was on the really good days, that elation, we're used to kind of sharing that with people. And but one of my most proud memories was having an event over at Rottnest Island. It was one they probably will never have again, because just through circumstance they had to host an event there. And walking down the beach, I'd never seen the wave before, and I was just like, oh, okay, I've got to work this out. And just through my own confidence and I guess your own inner coach, which I sort of feel like in sports, it's not till people have finished their career they trust themselves to be the coach. Don't you guys think? Like, I feel like all the way along, it's like you're not qualified almost. And I just felt like, why not coach myself during like my career, and especially this back half? And you've got all this knowledge and all this coaching intel, and it's really up to you though to apply those pieces in the right order on any given day. So a few of those things, it's a bit of a tangent, but it was a really cool kind of chapter. And post-COVID, I feel like, I've got that confidence on these bigger days and in these pressure moments to sort of make the call myself.
That's an unbelievable answer.
Yeah, I could talk about. I genuinely could talk about this kind of performance stuff like all day, and especially across codes, because I'm not sure footy and surfing. I'm not sure there's a lot of tangible skill sets that cross over there. But we had Finchy on before, and we've spoken to other people in different sports. Like, the mindset of so many athletes in so many sports is really similar. And universally, team sports and individual sports, it seems like they tend to go through the same stuff. And like, players will deal with it in different ways, and I'm sure there's a lot of surfers deal with it in different ways than what you just described. We'll come back to all that performance stuff, because that's going to take up, I think, the bulk of it. But for our listeners, maybe explain why or how you ended up as a Geelong supporter, because you're not from Geelong in the technical, traditional sense, are you?
Okay, so Geelong supporter. I've got this. So it's not the most obvious connection, right? But
oh, it's me, isn't it? God, Sally, this is embarrassing. It's because I came to the club, isn't it?
Well, you got some big reasons, but this was, everyone knows, like, New South Wales is known for their rugby league culture, and as much as, we had the Swans in town and that kind of thing, it's not like that real feel of what AFL footy was about. And we're going back, showing my age, at least like 20 plus years ago. And it was my first few pilgrimages to drive down to Bells Beach. And so driving down there, and then, you'd turn on TV and you're like, oh, like, the codes change. And so the footy saturation becomes AFL. And I was like, wow, this code seems pretty awesome. Why have I not been introduced to this? And like in this manner. And then, Geelong being the closest down there at Bells. And then I found out that a few of the boys surf. And then I met Cammy Ling, and the rest is history.
And that didn't turn you off. I've met Cameron
and you
Ling.
Stayed a Cat supporter. That's incredible.
I've met him once, and I nearly asked for a trade.
But if you met Cammy Ling, anyone would attest to the fact that he'd convince you big time. He's like, don't worry, we've got you covered. And then coming to a training session as well. I think that must have been a few years down the track. But then, Joel gave me like his jersey and just introduced me to it and had a kick around. And then since then as well, we just had some like really interesting similarities, because how Joel's always got his head taped up or he's like bleeding, and he's just like, it's for just Monty Python. He's like, oh, it's just a scratch.
Yeah, it's just a flesh wound.
At the time, like I had some of my biggest injuries in surfing, and one of the ones in Fiji was pretty classic, and I busted my eardrum, and I was in a bad way, and I sort of just tape it up, we'll keep surfing. And so I had the big like head wrap one eye thing, and then there was a picture of him at the same time, and I just thought it was so cool. I was like, I'm just like Joe.
You grew up a very multi-sport athlete: soccer, touch footy, cross country, national champion, middle distance runner. How do you reckon you would have gone if you tried your hand at AFL footy or AFLW footy?
Oh, if AFL, W footy was around, I think, it would have towed me in for sure, because I was an avid soccer player. I love the game in a sense of like structure and thinking and that sort of chess match. But I did love a run around, and I think, being able to sort of run, kick, and I think just the last thing for me was learning some tackle technique. But I had 3 older brothers, so I think it would have been a rough diamond, but you could probably sort of smooth that out. And I think it's such a wonderful game and culture. And if you turn back the clock, then for sure. But maybe if like there was some sort of like youth serum and I still had some legs on me in terms of running or the capacity I used to, post surfing would have been neat too.
Do you follow soccer at all, or was it just to play? Do you have a team that you follow?
Yeah, well, for me now coming into the Women's World Cup in Oz, it's so exciting. So a couple of my mates that I used to play schoolgirls with and the Aussie teams, so they're kind of, at that stage now that the biggest pinnacle, I guess, of their careers coming home to play a home World Cup. And, even just the Women's League in Australia, there's such good footballers from Australia, and they do us so proud, and especially the ones that are now overseas in all the other leagues. So I kind of just keep across our players. So I just support our Aussies, and no matter where they go, I'm just keen to have a watch and support them.
Excellent. Yeah. Do you you've talked before about being you are a role model. You don't always get to choose to be one for athletes all over the world, but I'd imagine you're a really significant kind of female role model in the sports space here in Australia. You must be kind of proud of that. Is that something you think about a lot, or do you not give it as much thought maybe as you once did?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it becomes a reality when you tend to have like a significant body of work. Like if you keep showing up after all these years, and sort of my, like going on 25 years in sport now, you don't think that that's where it leads, that you can connect with all these people. And I've always thought that it hasn't sort of been something that's been a burden or anything, because I always thought from the start that if I just do things my way and authentically and focus on why I wanted to be here, which was the performance and to, play sport and meet people, and just that fascination with movement and curiosity about how good I could get at a certain skill set. I feel like that kind of became my true north. And obviously as you move through your 20s, and it's sort of that sporting machine has all the tentacles of, working with brands and campaigns and all these opportunities, and you get some right and wrong, and you really try and put those decisions through a bit of a filter now and be like, well, does it kind of rest well with my morals, or is it a way for me to go and connect? Like I love to connect with people through action. So going over there and just like either going out and surfing with them or experiencing the ocean or connecting with their sport, just because, I froth on all sports and stuff like that. So, it's quite a cool transaction though. It becomes I don't know, a sense of like just this energy transfer. And I walk away just going, wow, like even the last Aussie leg competing here at home and after the event there at Margaret River, like we've had a full restructure of our tour and it's evolved a lot and it's hard to keep up. But they created this cut system and pretty brutal because it's almost like where the Catters are sitting now, like in number 9 and just pretend the season finished or midway through the season actually. And then they're like, oh, we're cutting it down to the top 10. And for women's sport at the moment and surfing, it's the growth rate is quite exponential, and they're just like the level's really high, and just deserves that, a few more spots kind of vibes everyone's pushing for. But it's just like, oh man, seemingly in sports terms, it was like the worst day ever, and your world's ending, you got cut, and then I bumped onto what we call the Challenger Series tour, and we started off at Snapper Rocks, and I walked down the beach, and there was just, I don't know, I guess this wave of support and people coming down, and the ones that had followed me from the very beginning, they've all got kids now, and you do, a run around at Snapper Rocks, you get a long wave and you have to run back to the point, and there's just all these like little groms running with me, and it's just like, they're just hanging off you. They're just so excited, and you think like, you guys weren't even born yet when I started. So how's this possible? And that's what I mean. It's this kind of momentum of people kind of transferring, I guess, my story on to their kids, and then they're picking up a board. And that's when I get those moments where I'm like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. And trusting, that I can have an impact on their kids is something super special.
I mean, you've had, as you said, like you've had a storied career, Olympian, multiple surf titles, where you've sort of come from. Did you have moments throughout your journey where you reflected, or has it sort of taken until this part to really sit back and sort of take it all in and enjoy what you've actually sort of been a pioneer in for women's surfing and women's sport in general?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, Tommy. It's like you guys could attest to this, where you sort of don't get to that reflective space as much because it sort of starts to symbolize that you're near the end. Like You're like, oh, I don't think I'm ready to let go as a competitor, but you're aware of the fact that you're beyond any result per se. Like not one result will really change my career at this point. And as much as, everyone just still stings and hurts, and you're just like, oh, if I really want to be at that stage or in my performance, or, you're seeking that title, and it's just that energy and pursuit of it. I guess we can't do it like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like it's something that you have to offer up everything in order to even have an opportunity, because it's almost like it knows when you're just like in that sense of like fear state, and if you go all in, you don't want to get hurt again. And it's funny, after time and time again, you almost become like, I don't know, like you get fit at losing, if that makes sense. Like you go, well, it's actually not the end of the world, because I'm so proud that I went all in again and again and again and again. And it's like that relentless kind of knockback. It's, I don't know, you almost connect with people more because they want to see that through you, that before they go and try their thing. It's like, I don't know, there's so many stories over the years where people have come up and they're just like, oh, you've inspired me to get up and go for that, job promotion, or, actually get up and go, I wasn't quite sure if I was good at that. And so I signed up for the footy club or the surf or the board riders. And you're like, that's what it's all about, because it is so scary to put everything on the line time and time again. And your body just wants to know the answer. It's like, what happens next? Like, what's that result going to be? And so in a sense, while you're still in that and you're so narrow focused, while you're still in the jersey, it becomes these little dot points where you realize like, okay, like I am at that point in my career, and I'm actually here just because I enjoy competing. Like the destination or the goal actually isn't that significant, because you're just heroing the process and that what it delivers to your life, the energy, the discipline, I don't know, just that forward momentum is enough for me. And that's what I turn up for time and time again.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's excellent. You said a few things that, so I'm an absolute sucker for writing down quotes when I hear them. and different little like expressions and stuff that like kind of encompasses like a bigger kind of idea or sentiment, but like is narrowed down to 5 words because that's the size of my attention span. And one of the ones that I had written down ages ago was making, I don't know who said it or even if it is an expression, but it was about making mistakes at full speed. Yeah. It's like if you're going to stuff up, just do it at full speed. Don't kind of go in tentative. And that's one that I always loved. But one thing about kind of looking back, plenty of career left to go, but for me at least, like looking back on my career now, the one thing I would have done a little bit different even early on was just sort of smell the roses a bit more, smell the flowers a bit more. Is like before every game I play, especially at the G, just because it's such an iconic kind of stadium, in the warm-up we go out 40 minutes before the game, is just kind of, I don't know, ponder around a little bit, just have a look at it and kind of take it all in, because you're going to be retired for a very long time. And I've actually found stepping back and going, like accepting that I'm I'm closer to the end than I am the start. It's actually been a really healthy thing for me. I feel a lot less anxious going into games, and I kind of enjoy it all a bit more. So you want to be careful it doesn't sort of take you out of the moment, or you don't lose any of your competitiveness. But I don't think it hurts every now and then to look around and go, shit, I'm pretty lucky here. You could be doing worse jobs. So I know that was true. That was true of me later in my career.
Don't you think it's amazing that we you graduate into that athletic maturity like in your brain, but at the start the whole system entrusts us like without the knowledge or foresight or framework, and you know the surge of like, this is what you're doing now, like without the foresight, or like no wonder we get in like a mess, upside down mess, and we're so like erratic and emotional.
Yeah,
not right till the end when they give us something that like it's useful that we could use it.
Well, you just have so few experiences of like heartbreak, really. So all those first handful of heartbreaks, like for us, maybe losing big games and prelims and stuff, like they all seem like the worst thing ever. But you get towards the end and you've had a dozen of bad ones, but you've also had a dozen good ones. It's kind of like, well, no, like you said, no one result is going to define your career when you're at this stage. It just doesn't feel like that when you're 21 and you've played 10 AFL games, or, you know, you're in your first few surf events. Like they feel like the worst things ever. And they can be hard. Yeah, it feels like life and death. And after a week, you're kind of all right and you're back on the horse. And it's just experience you don't have at a young age. But having said that, I would like to be 21 again.
Telling you like 17-year-old self that the destination was irrelevant, you'd be like, but isn't that the whole point?
Yeah. You'd be looking at your future self going, this guy's a loser. That's what this guy is.
Sucks.
Excellent. Won't take up a whole lot more of your time, by the way. We know you're super busy. But I just wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier in the performance space, again, about the confidence to become your own coach. It's maybe, I assume it's probably a little bit different in football. We literally have coaches for just about every possible scenario, stoppage coaches, backs, forwards, mids. We have a lot of autonomy here at the Cats, the way we operate, because we have a lot of older players. We have significant input into how we play, but that's only something I experienced since I come here. But how does that manifest itself for you heading into a big event in terms of like, you know, self-coaching or trusting yourself?
Oh, for sure. It's, I don't think it's still really fully accepted in our sport. Like surfing is, I guess, in its infancy in a way, in terms of where it is along its timeline and its Olympic now journey. And, you know, almost with that Olympic inclusion became a huge rush of another big wave of coaches because like all the governments and NSOs and national sporting organizations are like bolstering framework around it. And then it probably becomes a little similar to what you guys are used to, you know, your spreadsheets, and, you know, everyone has to handle it before you get to that stage of actually doing the work. So I don't know. I've just come from a place like right now, I'm looking out the window. I'm still living here at Geelong, and this place was where I fell in love with movement and where I heroed, I guess, my imagination. And that for me has been the biggest gift in my whole sporting journey, to have my own imagination. Like I woke up in the mornings and, you know, my mum and dad and that, like they're into sports, but they're not like professional athletes and I don't even know where I got it. Maybe too many Rocky movies, but I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do a few laps on my legs, and I'm going to get my little BMX and I'm going to punch out these hills. And then Blue Crush came out at the time, and I was like chin ups in trees and like skip rope and boxing bags, and like off of my own just journey, and this was all before school. And then I was just like, oh, cool, go to school, put the bag on the bus. I'm like, imagine if I could race the bus home because we're the last stop. And so I was like, oh, that would give me 20 minutes. I could make 5Ks in 20 minutes, and boom, I'll just start like running. And I'm just like, I don't know where I was coming up with all that stuff. But then later on in my career, as things become like more mundane and, you know, the ins and outs of the day, as an athlete, you got to show up for, you know, I guess your training stuff every single day. And surfing is a creative sport and a creative outlet. And if you lose your imagination, like really on what you're seeing in the wave and what you're seeing in your movement, what you're feeling, like if you're just like going through the motions, I swear it just doesn't translate. It just doesn't seem alive. It just looks like, oh yeah, there was another cutback, and oh yeah, I did some turns, and that's it. Like, I don't know. And then you could either flip it on its head and you think like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do a cutback. I'm going to do this big line. What if I go around like this with all the speed I can get? And, you know, you're seeing that in the water and then on land too. Like, I'll be in the gym and I can wake up and I can feel what I need to be done. Like I said to you guys, you said, how are you feeling today? I said, yeah, I'm buggered because I've had 40 hours travel and I've done this, but in a sense, like I'm happily tired. So I know what I need today. Like, I'm waking up and I might just need bike. I need to flush the system. I need a little bit of resistance, but my low back's pretty cranky. So I might just do X, Y, and Z, activate this. And I'm like, I still want to connect with the ocean, but I don't want to be at full throttle, because if I take like my shortboard, like something like that behind me, that's kind of like our, you know, Ferrari model. It just, the thing that makes you want to do everything at full speed and push your hardest. I was like, I'll take the pressure off. I'll take out like an MR20, which that thing, it's like, it takes the pressure off your body because you get all this speed, but you can move really kind of flowy and zippy at the same time. And so that opens up a new part where you're activating, but you're sort of flowing with the wave. So, you know, you've been out there, and I'll pick a spot relative to what I feel like. And I don't feel like talking to anyone today, apart from you guys. And then I was like, I'll just go out to a place where there's no one in the water. And so I can just see the whales. I could see the cows on the hill, just nature, connect with nature. You know, I'd come in and the pools are all like turned cold because it's winter. So you jump in for an ice bath in there. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I just want to sit here and lay in the sun and do my breathing and my breath work. So if I trust myself to coach myself, I've done everything I need to without picking up the phone and asking someone. And if I did, I know what those coaches would probably say. And if I had to go see them to know that, then I'd probably spend like 40 minutes driving between every session. So I've cut out all the middlemen and women for that point. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like coaching is irrelevant. It's just trusting yourself and your instincts at that point. Like, that's why I'm still so energized in my training, and then energized to fly all the way across the world and put the jersey on. Because I'm just like, oh yeah, let's go. If I go over to Europe, my training on that day is going to be completely different. It's going to be in different places. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. And so it's sort of, yeah, this spontaneous like sort of beauty. And that's, yeah, I just love waking up to that every day. But it doesn't mean I haven't been questioned along the way of like, you know, you said you coach, what are you really doing? Like, where's your spreadsheet? And I'm like, I could write it all out, but I'm really doing it all. And yeah, and then I feel, you know, post-career, if I ever had an opportunity to be in a role or facilitate some sort of coaching, that's what I'd try and build into our athletes, is to have imagination and have fun and think outside the box, and yeah, just keep things like alive for yourself. And that's, for me, would be a sustainable existence in sport.
It's a brilliant little just like reminder, and almost a cue for us, like being in elite circles, you do get sort of tied down to the monotony of what you do, and you know, the things you sort of have to tick off, and the things that are sort of expected of you. But if you can like connect back with why you actually started your said sports, surfing, Gaelic and soccer for Reg, football for me, like it actually keeps it refreshing and it keeps it really enjoyable. And I think you can sort of get bogged down in the pressures of footy and surfing, I'm sure, as well. But it's actually refreshing to hear another sport athlete to keep it like keep it simple. Understand who you are and what makes you tick. It's as important as the X's and the O's and how you sort of play the game.
Yeah, we had a coach, Neil Craig, Adelaide, was a former Adelaide senior coach, but he was big on talking about how sport tries to bore you and only the most disciplined survive, because like you said, it just becomes so monotonous. Like there's only so many kind of, 100-meter sprints you can do outside, and then there's only so many 20-minute bikes you can do. It's the change-up is what keeps it fresh, because like after a while you get so bored that you are only human, your mind will wander, you won't listen to something, and that was like always his idea of what the biggest challenge in sport is, and what separates the really elite from the very good is their ability to not get bored out of concentration. But it sounds like you've kind of figured that out yourself. Again, I had to be told it, like I do with most revelations in my sporting career. It needs to be pointed out to me.
But it's just the context you put around it too, and the storytelling and the space. Just giving, I would say that no matter what sport you're in, it's giving yourself the independence and space to like listen to the information coming in, but put it down in a sense of like your own likes and interests, and I don't know, as a human trait, we all love to be listened to. So if you think of yourself internally or your internal athlete and just be like, what's it saying? Like, what are you really saying? What do you want to do? And I know there's always things to tick off, and in bigger organizations like yourself, and the spreadsheets are so valuable because there's so many people. But it's about having, I guess, that flexibility in yourself for maybe just your extras, if that's all you get to do by yourself, and just keeping your independence and thought of like how you like to do things, with all that information coming in. Because like you said, like you show up for it every single day. So, you better learn to do it sustainably. And that's what I want to, by the end of my sporting career, that's the number one goal, to still have the spirit I had coming in. Like no result or system or sport, I'm not offering that up. You know what I mean? Like I'm not, when they say put everything on the table in order to go after your biggest goals, I'm not offering that up to any result, any one result that, that it gets to have my spirit or break my spirit because, I didn't get that cup or that medal, or it's just not the case, because at the end of the day, I want to, still be in love with the ocean right till I'm, 100 and whatever. I'll just wheel my little board down and my boogie board and just lay in the waves, because that's where it started and that's where I want to end.
I think that's the goal for a lot of players, fall out of love with footy too. It can be hard. Sally, thanks so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. We know you're a bit jet lagged, although you couldn't tell. You're more sprightly than Stewie.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
No, we really appreciate it, and it's great to have you on board as a Cats fan. It's been great to speak to you previously and again today. It's always a pleasure. So thank you so much. We'll be watching closely, and you've certainly got all of our support here as well.
Oh, it's a big highlight for me, and I'll be cheering. I'm always listening on when I can't get the vision. Always listening on the radio, no matter where I am. So big game coming up. What's today? Tuesday, maybe. So Thursday. Yep. So let's bring it home. And we're all in a similar boat. Being in the middle of the pack. That's where it all happens. That's where the good stuff happens. So dig in, dig deep.
Will do. Pleasure. Thanks, Sally.
Go Cats. Awesome. See you guys. Thanks for your time.
And that is a wrap for episode 3 of the still called Tuohy and Stewie. Keep sending in questions, keep engaging. We love the feedback. Obviously, Zach's a bit of a podcast guru. He's been in the game a while. I'm very new to this. But it was a fantastic chat with Sally. Little insight into, our upcoming week with Port. And little secret maybe, we're working on getting Guy Pearce on to the next step. So we're excited for that.
Another big Reggie fan.
Another huge Zach Tuohy fan.
Not sure if he barracks for the Cats, but I think it's the lure.
That's it. The premise of this podcast is Zach Tuohy fans. I'm just here for the beautiful ride that it is. So thank you, and we'll see you next time on Tuohy and Stewie.
Thank you, friends.